Adowa ዛሬ ናት አድዋ ትላንት መቼ ተነሱና የወዳደቁት ምስጋና ለነሱ ለአድዋ ጀግኖች ለዛሬ ነፃነት ላበቁኝ ወገኖች
Fano, 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 fano.
This is a speech delivered by Mr. Patrick Mazimaka, Deputy Commissioner of the African Union, on November the 1st, 2007, on the occasion of hoisting the flags of Ethiopia and the African Union in the presence of the President of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, officials from the federal regional governments, religious leaders, and the head of the delegation of the European Union at Berhan Adowa for the Africa Cultural Centre in Adowa, where the projects that commemorate the victory of the Battle of Adowa are going to be constructed.
President of Tigray Regional State, Your Holiness Abune Paulus, Archbishop of Aksum, Echegi of the See of Tekra Hamanot, and President of World Council of Churches, Your Excellency Ambassador Timothy Clark, Representative of the European Union, distinguished members of the Tigray regional institutions, our hosts, the people of Tigray, Mr. Fisihai, Mrs. Isabella Berenesh, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Today is a day already described in such eloquent terms by those who speak before me, and address myself to the topic assigned to me, which I must say was a very difficult homework for me, because I can speak with my brain but not the spirit of the people who live around these mountains of Adowa, where the victory was consummated. Mr. President, thank you for inviting me to represent the African Union and the chairperson of the Commission, Professor Alpha Konare, at this historic occasion. The building of this center at Adowa gives a new meaning to a place celebrated for the resilience, unity, and heroism of the Ethiopian people. It's an eloquent way of reminding all of Africa that the Adowa victory is theirs and a truly shared heritage. In 1894, 10 years after the Berlin Conference, and 2 years before the victory of Adowa, a white man arrived at the royal court of the Kingdom of Rwanda, my country. He was a German, it turned out. He came from Tanganyika to the east of Rwanda. He came seeking friendship, apparently, and a proposed number of infrastructure construction across Rwanda to the borders with Belgium, Congo, and Uganda, which was under the British. We were not aware of the fact of the Berlin Conference, and the Germans did not declare their intentions on colonizing Rwanda. The infrastructure proposed was the preparation for future wars, the World War I and World War II, because at that time, no European power had come to our territory. So we were not aware of those intricacies, and we were not aware of the deceitfulness of these new friends of ours. If Ethiopia had been in total ignorance of the partition of Africa, as Rwanda was, the Battle of Adowa would not have happened. But that was not to be, because Ethiopia had fought and won many wars against Italian armies, with battles at Sahati, Dogali, Ambalage, Mekele. Many African countries with the same position as ours, in total ignorance of world events, or had been ravaged and mortally wounded by slavery and looting. The occupation of Africa on the Berlin Formula was consummated without any resistance in most of our continent. The Zulu, the Ndebele, the Bakongo, the Ashanti, the Mosi, the Fang, the Mandinke, the Songhai had been exhausted at the new capitalist powers who accumulated wealth on the backs of colonies, graduated full-fledged imperialists, and asserted their dominance in an organized manner through the Berlin General Agreement. This quartering of our continent, our empires, our kingdoms would have been a permanent state, not only of Africa, the continent, but also of Africa, the slave colonies of the Americas and the Caribbean, if Adowa had not happened. Thus, the timing of the Adowa victory, 10 years of the triumphant signing of the Berlin General Agreement, is as important as the battle itself, because it was a culmination of struggles for decolonization started by Haiti 50 years before Berlin Conference. But it was also to be an inspiration for Pan-Africanism and anti-colonial struggles that saw all of Africa free a century later. Adowa may thus be a defeat for the Italians, but in reality, it was the beginning of the end of a stillborn colonialism of Africa. Defeat the way all the 11 nations around the table in Bali: Great Britain, Germany, Austria, Belgium, Denmark, Spain, France, Italy, Holland, Portugal, and Sweden. But Italians were hurt early in the struggle, and that led to a spirit of revenge, which further weakened the hold on Africa, and together with Germany and Austria, led to embracing of fascism, for which they had to face the rest of their erstwhile allies in 2 world wars. They pursued redivision of the world through force. This culminated in 2 world wars, which resulted in the wilting of imperialist powers and a rapid decolonization and a bitter but swift victories. It is important to note that only a dozen African countries had to take up arms to fight for their independence. The rest were easily let go through constitutional rearrangements. Today, Africa in diaspora are searching for the fulfillment of the promise of the victory won at Adowa. The formation of the Organization of African Unity in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, in 1963 was the first salute to the heroes of Adowa. The debate of the time was on how to consolidate African victories over colonialism by unifying our continent and politically, economically, so as to better confront the other front. The debate still rages in the African Union. We have now won total liberation of the continent, and in the diaspora, very significant steps towards equality and equity have been made, and Martin Luther King's dream looks attainable. We owe this to the victory of Adowa, the victory of Emperor Johannes IV, Menelik II, Queen Taitu, and Ras Alula. Ethiopia did not only host that debate, it continues to do so even today. Africa is not only privileged to have its headquarters in Addis Ababa, it is proud to be associated with, as the chairperson of the commission said in his memorable Millennium speech, theirs to the heroism of Adowa, those who make Ethiopia a winner. Its political leaders, illustrious artists, men and women of culture, business community, the farmers, the sportsmen and women. Africa is equally proud of its achievements in the liberation of the whole of our continent and of its daughters and sons who shed their blood for us to be free. In a book on the Battle of Adowa, the authors sum up the significance of Adowa in these words. In the 19th century, scramble for Africa, when Europeans carved up an entire continent for exploitation, Africans won a solitary, shocking, glorious victory at Adowa in Ethiopia. The most celebrated military operation involving Africans and Europeans since the time of Hannibal, this emblematic victory still resounds in the minds of Africans and the African diaspora as a promise of potential and illustration of dictum, strength is unity. Paulos Melikias and Gachachos Botaferia are the Ethiopian scholars who edited this book, and I cannot add much to this eloquent testimony. The Battle of Adowa united Ethiopians more than any other single event in their history, but it was mostly a shock for the colonialists. In an attempt to revenge their lost small battles, for African people, it was an emphatic hoisting of the triumphal banner, the bar raised to the maximum, and beyond which lay certain victory. Therefore, the Ethiopian victory at the Battle of Adowa has remained and will remain a very important event in the shared recollection of the entire African people. It is the only secular episode in the whole history of Africa that has been celebrated for more than a century with an unabated popular enthusiasm. So says Kimfrey Abraham, author of another book, Impact of Adowa Victory. It is therefore befitting that we are here today to accompany His Excellency the President as he honors this occasion by laying the cornerstone for the construction of the Ecotourism Center at Adowa, which I believe will enhance our knowledge and appreciation of the meaning of the Adowa victory. And the people of Adowa and all of Tigray, the crowd of Ethiopian statehood and home of Christianity and the Ottoman Empire, will have to congratulate you for keeping the memory burning. Mr. President, allow me to end my little intervention here and thank all of you for your kind attention.
At the historical landmark of Berhan Adowa for the Africa Cultural Center in Adowa, these are some of the projects which are being created to commemorate the victory of the Battle of Adowa.
በክብር ይሄዳል ሰው ሊኖር ሰው ሞቱ የተሰጠኝ ሕይወት ዛሬ በነፃነት ሰው ተከፍሎበታል ከደምና ከአጥንት ስንት ወገን ወደቀ በነፃነት ምድር ትናገር አድዋ ትናገር ትመስክር ትናገር አድዋ ትናገር አገሬ እንዴት እንደቆምኩኝ ከፊታችሁ ደሞ መከራ ሆነ ያን ሁሉ ሰገቀ
We have to participate together to ensure that these projects are successful.
መቼ ተነሱና የወዳደቁት ምስጋና ለነሱ ለአድዋ ጀግኖች ለዛሬ ነፃነት ላበቁኝ